But every day when the humans would turn to stare at her, she couldn't escape the nagging thought that they still viewed her as a monster. "Princess Alethar," Dr. Rivera said one afternoon, after another round of language lessons. "We've been studying your ship's technology. It's incredible. We've never seen anything like it. We need to know more about how it works. Maybe we can help you repair it?" Alethar looked at her with suspicion. "You would help me?" she asked, her voice tentative. Carla nodded. "Yes, we will help you. We're scientists. We want to understand. We just need time. We need to study your ship, figure out how it works, and see if we can reverse engineer it. We're not the enemy, Alethar." The princess's heart swelled with cautious hope. Maybe they could help her return home after all. But there was still one problem. Despite their promises of help, the humans still recoiled from her appearance. They spoke to her, but always with an air of distance. They treated her as a fascinating object, an alien anomaly, rather than a living being of equal status. There was something about the way they looked at her that made her feel more like a specimen than a person. She sat in a corner of the research lab, gazing at the array of humans gathered around her damaged ship, discussing its intricate parts and components. She listened to their excited chatter, but it only made her feel more isolated. Their fascination with her ship was unmistakable, but not a single person had once asked about her life or her world. They had made no effort to understand who she truly was. It was as if her identity had become an afterthought, buried beneath the fear and intrigue surrounding her alien body. Alethar sighed, her 6 arms crossing over her chest. She had to find a way to bridge the gap between her and the humans. She could no longer afford to be the curiosity that they only stared at from a distance. She needed their trust. She stood up, her movements graceful despite the weight of her frustration. Walking over to Carla, who was still studying the ship's control panels, she said, "Dr. Rivera, can I speak with you privately?" Carla turned, startled but attentive. "Of course, Princess. What's on your mind?" "I want to tell you more about Zalor," Alethar began, her voice measured, "about my people, our culture. We are a peaceful race, devoted to the arts of knowledge and beauty. But we are also strong, fiercely protective of our world. And I am its heir." Carla regarded her with a quiet understanding. "I think that's what we need to hear. Not just about your technology but about you. Your people. We've been treating you like an alien. But you're right. We need to understand who you are, not just what you are." Alethar smiled faintly, feeling a flicker of hope. "Thank you. I'm not like the other races you've encountered. I am not a conqueror, nor am I here to invade. My people, we do not believe in war or in harming others." Carla nodded slowly, absorbing her words. "I believe you, Princess. But there's still so much we don't understand. The fear, it's hard to shake off. You have to understand that to us, everything about you is alien. It's not just your body. It's everything, your way of thinking, your technology, your culture. You're a mystery." "I know," Alethar replied softly. "And I will help you understand. But you must not think me a monster because I look different. Please." Carla's expression softened. "We're trying. I promise. But you need to understand something, Alethar." She paused, her voice gentle but firm. "There's one thing we don't know. Why you're here. You said you came in peace, but why? What is your purpose on Earth? What do you need from us?" The princess hesitated. The truth was she hadn't come to Earth by choice. The portal that had brought her to this world had been a catastrophic accident. She wasn't sure how long it would take to repair her ship or how much longer she would be stranded on this strange planet. "I need help," Alethar admitted, her eyes meeting Carla's. "I need to return home to my people. They must think I am dead. I must go back to Zalor. Without my ship, without your help, I will not be able to return." Carla thought for a moment, then nodded. "We'll help you, Princess. But you have to understand, it's not just about fixing your ship. It's about finding a way to help you fit into our world too. It's not going to be easy." Alethar's heart sank. "I understand. You think I don't belong here. That I am an outsider." "No, that's not it," Carla said quickly, holding up her hands. "But you're right. It's going to take time for us to get used to you. You're not like us. And the world is not going to understand what you are, not yet. But if we work together, maybe we can change that." Alethar stood tall, her 6 limbs flexing with renewed determination. "I will prove to your people that I am not a threat," she said, her voice unwavering. "I will show you my culture, my history. I am not just a monster to be feared." As the days turned into weeks, Alethar began to do just that. She gave lessons on Zalorian customs, shared stories of her homeworld, and demonstrated the art and elegance of her people's dance rituals. Slowly but surely, the humans began to see her as more than just a strange creature. The fear slowly faded into curiosity and then into respect. But even as the humans grew more accepting, Alethar knew the road ahead would not be easy. There were still many who saw her as a threat, and as she learned more about human history, she realized that the scars of their violent past ran deep. It wasn't just her appearance that kept them at arm's length, it was their own fear of the unknown. She had her work cut out for her. But with determination in her heart, Alethar was ready to take the next step in proving that not only was she not ugly, but she was also worthy of their trust. The weeks in the research facility had begun to blend together in a mixture of scientific experimentation, cultural exchange, and a growing, fragile bond between Princess Alethar and the humans who surrounded her. Despite the initial shock of her appearance, some of them had begun to see her not as a terrifying alien, but as a being with her own goals, values, and struggles. They were learning to accept her, slowly but surely. But even as the human scientists made efforts to study her ship, the task of communication remained a significant barrier. Though the princess had made significant strides in understanding their language, the complexities of human expression were vast and difficult to master. They often misinterpreted her words, assuming she meant something she did not, and in turn, Alethar occasionally found herself tangled in misunderstandings. Sometimes she couldn't help but feel like a foreigner, not just in appearance but in her very essence. Her royal status weighed heavily on her shoulders. She had always been told that a true leader carried the burden of those they ruled, but this was not what she had expected. Her homeworld of Zalor had been a place of peace and stability, there had been no wars, no strife. They had lived in harmony with nature, had created cities that blended seamlessly with the planet's lush forests, and had honed their crafts in music, literature, and diplomacy. But here, among the humans, she was nothing but a curiosity, a living experiment. One morning, as Alethar sat in the small room assigned to her, she looked at the images of Zalor that had been shared with her. They were holograms, vivid depictions of her home planet, its oceans, its mountains, and its shining cities. But even as she gazed at the beauty of her world, a sharp pang of loneliness hit her. She missed the comfort of her people, the security of her royal lineage, and the familiar rhythms of her life. The door to her room opened, and Dr. Rivera entered with a tentative smile. "Good morning, Princess. How are you today?" Alethar didn't respond immediately. She didn't know how to explain the mix of emotions inside her. The longing for home, the frustration with being misunderstood, and the lingering hope that she might one day return to her world. Instead, she simply nodded. "I've been thinking about your ship," Dr. Rivera continued. "There's progress, but it's slow. Some of the technology is unlike anything we've seen before. We're still trying to understand the energy source that powers it." Incredible, Alethar. It could change everything we know about physics. The princess shifted, sitting up straighter. "I understand. But it's not just the technology one need help with, Dr. Rivera. It's my return. You said you could help me, but I don't see the progress. I need to go home." Carla's expression softened. "We're trying. We really are. But there's a lot we still don't understand about your world. There's still one question that we can't answer. Why did you come to Earth? Was it an accident or was there a purpose?" Alethar hesitated. This was the question that had been nagging her ever since she had arrived on Earth. Why had she been sent here? The portal that brought her here was unstable, and her ship's systems had malfunctioned in ways she didn't fully understand. But part of her wondered if there was a deeper reason, something beyond the accident. Something that had led her to this strange world. "I'm not sure," Alethar finally admitted, her voice laced with frustration. "I didn't come here on purpose. The portal was an accident. I was trying to return home when the energy field destabilized and I ended up here, in your world." Carla thought for a moment, her brow furrowed in thought. "An accident, you say? But there's more to this, isn't there? There's something else. Something you're not telling me?" Alethar bit her lower lip, her 6 arms wrapping around her chest in a gesture of self-protection. I don't know how to explain it. But my people, the Zalorians, have a prophecy. It speaks of a great danger that would come from beyond the stars, a force that could destroy everything we have built. The prophecy says that one would come from the stars, a stranger who would either save us or lead us to our doom. The words hung in the air, heavy and ominous. Dr. Rivera looked at her in silence for a long moment, absorbing what she had just heard. "You think that's why you're here?" Carla asked carefully. Alethar nodded, her expression somber. "I don't know. But I cannot ignore the possibility. I didn't come here to seek war, but what if I'm meant to prevent it? What if Earth is part of that prophecy? Carla's eyes widened and she took a step back. That's a lot to consider. You think Earth is in danger? The princess didn't answer immediately. She wasn't certain. She had no evidence, only the words of an ancient prophecy passed down through generations. But the unease in her heart told her that there might be more to her arrival than a mere accident. There were whispers among her people that something dark was brewing in the universe, something that sought to destroy peaceful civilizations like Xalar. Was Earth connected to that threat? I don't know, Alethar admitted, her voice quiet. But I have to find out. If Earth is in danger, I must protect it, whether I can return home or not. Carla watched her for a moment, her gaze thoughtful. We'll help you, princess. But you need to understand something. There are people on Earth who won't be as accepting as we are. There are governments, agencies, people who may not understand you or worse, see you as a threat. We need to be careful. I know, Alethar said, her voice firm. I have already seen the fear in their eyes. I cannot change the way I look. I cannot change the fact that I am not from this world. But I will prove that I am not the enemy. As Carla left the room, Alethar sank back into her chair, her mind swirling with conflicting emotions. She wanted to trust the humans, to believe that they would help her. But she also knew that there was a greater threat looming, one that she could not ignore. She had a duty to her people and now, perhaps, a duty to Earth as well. Later that evening, as the sky outside darkened, Alethar found herself in the courtyard of the facility, looking up at the stars. She could sense the pulse of the universe, the faint tug of a greater purpose calling her. The prophecy, the whispers, the fear, everything seemed to be pointing to a moment in time where her actions would decide the fate of not just Xalar but perhaps Earth itself. Her thoughts were interrupted by a voice behind her. Princess, are you all right? It was Dr. Rivera. She stood in the doorway, her expression concerned. Alethar turned to face her. I'm fine, Carla. Just thinking. Carla stepped closer. You're not alone in this, you know. We may not fully understand your world or your people, but we're here to help. Together we'll figure this out. For the first time since arriving on Earth, Alethar felt a small spark of hope flicker inside her. Maybe, just maybe, she wouldn't have to face the prophecy alone. As the days passed, the sense of isolation Alethar had felt in the beginning began to shift. While her interactions with the humans remained complex, the trust between her and Dr. Carla Rivera deepened. More and more, Carla became not just her interpreter, but a bridge between two worlds, her alien world of Xalar and Earth's humanity. Yet, despite the growing connection, Alethar's unease lingered. Earth was a beautiful world, full of wonders that even she hadn't anticipated, towering cities, diverse cultures, lush landscapes. But it was also a world that had its own fears, its own complexities. And those complexities were slowly beginning to show themselves. One day, as the princess and Carla sat in the research facility, watching the scientists work on the broken parts of Alethar's ship, a commotion outside caught their attention. The sounds of raised voices echoed through the walls. Alethar's eyes narrowed as she stood up, instinctively sensing that something was wrong. She could feel a shift in the atmosphere, a sudden tension in the air. Stay here, Carla said quickly, standing up to follow the noise. I'll see what's going on. Alethar nodded but couldn't shake the feeling that something darker was unfolding. She waited in silence for a moment, trying to calm the racing thoughts in her mind. She had come to trust the humans in this small facility, but Earth was not a unified world. There were factions, governments, and forces she could not fully comprehend, forces that might not be as open to her existence as Carla had been. The minutes stretched long, and Alethar's thoughts turned once more to her mission. The prophecy, the whispers, and the possible threat looming over her people. It was all too much. Was Earth truly the next target? If it was, could she stop it? Was she meant to be the protector of this world? Or was she doomed to bring destruction, as the prophecy suggested? She shook her head, trying to push the overwhelming thoughts aside. It wasn't just the fate of Earth at stake, it was also the fate of Xalar. Her people were relying on her. She couldn't let fear consume her now. After what felt like an eternity, Carla returned, her expression strained but resolute. There's been an incident, she said, her voice tight with urgency. The news about you, it's spreading faster than we anticipated. There's a group of people, anti-alien activists, who've taken interest in your arrival. They're here now. They want answers. They want you gone. Alethar's heart sank. She knew this was coming. The fear of the unknown was a powerful thing. But hearing the words from Carla's lips made it all the more real. The fragile trust she had worked so hard to build was already beginning to crack. Where are they now? Alethar asked, her voice steady despite the rising panic in her chest. They're outside, Carla said, her eyes flicking nervously toward the window. We've got security here but they're not happy. They're demanding that you be turned over to the authorities. Alethar exhaled slowly, taking in the full weight of the situation. She had come to Earth in peace, hoping to find help, only to be met with distrust and fear. And now she was a target. Do you think they're dangerous? She asked, trying to keep her tone calm. Carla hesitated before responding. Yes. There's been talk of violence. They've been organizing for weeks, rallying against any extraterrestrial presence on Earth. We've been trying to keep it under wraps, but now, it's out in the open. Alethar's mind raced. This wasn't just an issue of misunderstanding, it was a direct threat to her safety and to the fragile alliance she had begun to build with the humans around her. The activists had no idea what she was capable of, what she represented. All they saw was an alien being different from everything they knew, and that alone was enough to incite fear. We need to stay calm, Alethar said, her voice firm. I cannot afford to let panic rule my actions. I need to be seen for what I truly am, not a monster, not a threat, but a being in need of help. Carla nodded, her expression resolute. I agree. We'll handle this. We've got people here who can help defuse the situation. Alethar's mind worked furiously as the situation outside escalated. She had no way of knowing how far this would go, how violent it might get. But she couldn't ignore the reality. There were those who would never accept her, no matter how much she proved herself. To them, she would always be a symbol of fear, an unknown that could not be trusted. In that moment, the princess realized something profound. She had no choice but to show her strength. Not just for herself but for all of Xalar. For all the races that might look upon Earth with similar distrust and fear. It was no longer about proving that she was not ugly, not monstrous. It was about proving that she could stand as a leader, a protector, no matter the odds. I need to speak to them, Alethar said, determination hardening in her voice. Carla stared at her, her face filled with concern. You want to face them? Alone? Yes, Alethar replied. But I need your help. Help me get to them. I will speak with them. If they will listen, I will show them that I mean no harm. Carla's brow furrowed, but after a long moment she nodded. All right. I'll help you, princess. But you need to be careful. We don't know how they'll react. They're already on edge. I will be fine, Alethar said, standing tall. I have nothing to hide. The two women made their way toward the front of the facility, where the protesters had gathered. As they neared the building's perimeter, Alethar felt the weight of hundreds of eyes upon her, their gazes filled with suspicion, fear, and even anger. The activists were chanting now, their voices rising in a frenzy as they demanded the alien princess be handed over. Alethar's pulse quickened, but she pushed down the nerves, focusing instead on her goal, to show them that she was not a threat. She had to reach them. The humans who stood before her needed to see her as more than an invader, as more than the stranger from beyond the stars. Stop, she called out, her voice carrying over the crowd. For a moment, the chanting ceased. Alethar stepped forward, her 6 arms held out at her sides in a gesture of peace. She could see the fear in their eyes, the disbelief at her very existence, but she also saw the flicker of curiosity beneath it. I am Alethar, she said, her voice calm but commanding. Princess of the Xalorian people. I did not come here to harm you. I did not come here to take anything from you. I am here because I need your help. A few in the crowd scoffed, muttering among themselves. Lies, one man shouted. You're here to conquer us. No, Alethar said firmly. I am here to protect. To prevent a greater danger from reaching your world. Her words hung in the air. She had no idea if they would believe her, but she had to try. There was no turning back now. The air was thick with tension, every breath Alethar took feeling heavier than the last. The crowd before her had fallen silent, but it was a silence filled with suspicion and wariness. Their eyes, too many eyes, stared at her, trying to decipher the alien presence she represented. For the first time since arriving on Earth, she felt truly alone. Her people were galaxies away, and she could not even grasp the full extent of the threat she had come here to stop. But she had no choice now. If she did not make them understand, she would lose the only chance to unite them against the danger that awaited. I am not your enemy, Alethar continued, her voice steady, her 6 arms raised slightly, palms open to signal peace. I have come from far beyond the stars. I carry with me a warning, one that concerns not just my world but yours as well. A murmur rippled through the crowd, and the man who had shouted earlier, a tall, scruffy-looking figure, stepped forward. He was clearly the leader, his face twisted with disdain. A warning? From an alien? Don't think we're that gullible. We don't need your warnings or your fancy words. What we need is you gone. Alathar's heart quickened, but she kept her composure. You are afraid of what you don't understand. I know how this looks, but I swear to you, I do not wish to harm your planet. I have seen the future, and if I do not stop it, you and my people will suffer. There is something greater than us both coming. Something greater? The leader scoffed. More threats? Why should we believe you? Why should we trust a creature like you? The question hit like a blow. Alathar's mind raced, scrambling for the right words. How could she convey the urgency of her message without revealing too much, without making them even more fearful of her presence? She knew her words alone would not be enough. She had to show them she meant what she said. I know what you think of me, she began, voice quieter but resolute. You see my form and all you see is an alien, something monstrous, something unnatural. But I am more than my appearance. I am a being who has seen destruction, who has witnessed the fall of civilizations far more advanced than yours. She stepped closer to the crowd, the air crackling with anticipation. Carla stood beside her, trying to maintain a calm but worried expression as the protesters shifted uneasily. I do not wish to be your enemy, Alathar said, her tone resolute. But I will fight for this world just as I would fight for mine. If the prophecy is true and if the danger I sense is real, then we must put aside our fears and join together. I need your help to stop what is coming. Earth, your planet, may be the last hope in the galaxy. The leader, still skeptical but momentarily quiet, looked her up and down as if trying to assess whether she was telling the truth. The silence stretched on until the tension was unbearable. Then, suddenly, a voice called from the back of the crowd. Let her speak. A young woman, probably in her 20s, stepped forward, her expression both defiant and intrigued. How do we know she's telling the truth? But, how do we know she's lying either? The murmurs shifted. A few protesters, more open-minded than the others, began to nod, their faces less hostile. Maybe we've been too quick to judge, the young woman continued, her voice carrying over the gathering. Maybe we should listen before we make up our minds? Alathar seized the opportunity, her voice ringing out, strong and clear. You may not understand what I am saying now. But in time you will. If you trust me, if you listen, I will show you what's coming. I will show you what I am talking about. But if you reject me, if you choose to turn away from the truth, you may find yourselves fighting a war you cannot win. Her words were heavy, and for a moment the crowd was still. Alathar knew she had planted a seed of doubt in their minds, but whether it would grow or wither was still uncertain. The young woman's words had given her hope, but the majority still stood at odds. You think we should trust her, Emily? The leader spat, his voice dripping with contempt. After all the damage aliens have caused in the past? All we've seen, this is no different. Emily, undeterred, shook her head. But we've never had an alien speak to us this way before. You heard her. She's not here for war. She's offering us something, information. She's not threatening us. Maybe we should take that chance. Carla stepped forward cautiously, standing just behind Alathar. We understand the fear. But this is bigger than us. We can't afford to ignore it. A long silence followed, punctuated only by the distant sound of the wind rustling through the trees. Alathar's heart pounded in her chest as she waited for the crowd's response. They were on the edge, unsure of which way to fall. The leader finally broke the silence, his voice low but filled with contempt. I don't trust you, he said, narrowing his eyes at Alathar. But maybe I don't need to. You say you're here to protect us, that you're not here to harm us. Prove it. A shiver of uncertainty ran through her. She wasn't sure what he wanted, what he expected her to do. But she had no choice. She had no choice but to prove her worth. How do you want me to prove it? Alathar asked, her voice a mix of resolve and cautious curiosity. The leader gestured sharply to the ground before him. Show us your power. Show us that you can really protect us. A sudden unease shot through Alathar. This wasn't what she had expected. Power. That was what they wanted to see. How could she demonstrate something so intangible? She wasn't sure if her telepathic abilities she had honed since childhood, would be enough. She had never performed such an act before, not in front of a crowd, not for strangers. But this was no time for hesitation. Drawing in a deep breath, Alathar closed her eyes for a moment, centering herself. Her mind reached out, feeling the currents of the universe, the forces of nature that ran beneath the surface of all things. She felt the collective fear in the crowd, but she also felt something deeper, something that connected them all. She was not just an outsider, she was a part of this world, connected through the very fabric of the cosmos. A pulse of energy, subtle but undeniable, began to radiate from her body. The air around her hummed, charged with the intensity of her will. A soft wind stirred, and the grass at her feet bent in a spiral as if reacting to her presence. The ground itself seemed to resonate with her power. When Alethar opened her eyes, she saw the shocked expressions of the crowd. The leader was speechless, his eyes wide in disbelief. He had asked for a display of power, but he had not expected anything like this. "Now you see," Alethar said, her voice quiet but filled with unshakable certainty. "I have no need to fight you. I am here to protect." The leader remained silent for a long moment before turning away, clearly stunned. The crowd was still, their fear now mixed with awe and confusion. The seeds of doubt had taken root. They didn't fully understand what she had done, but they had seen her power, felt it, and it was undeniable. Alethar stood still, waiting for their verdict. Would they accept her? Would they trust her? The moment stretched on. Alethar stood motionless, her heart beating in her chest as the tension in the air thickened. The crowd was still, their expressions a mixture of awe, fear, and confusion. She could feel the weight of their eyes upon her, but she remained steady, her resolve solidifying with every passing second. She had given them proof of her power, proof of her intention to protect, and now the ball was in their court. The leader, his arms crossed and his jaw clenched, looked at her with narrowed eyes. He hadn't moved since the display, his face unreadable. Alethar held her breath, hoping for a sign of acceptance, hoping that the fear would dissipate and the humans would realize they were not so different after all. But the silence stretched on. "I'm not impressed," the leader finally said, breaking the stillness. His voice was cold, his words cutting through the quiet like a blade. "You want us to trust you, but you're no different from the other aliens we've seen. You're just another threat, hiding behind pretty words and flashy powers." Alethar's heart sank. Her stomach twisted with the sting of rejection. She had given everything, shown them her true self, and yet they still saw her as a threat. A murmur rippled through the crowd, and Alethar could see the seeds of doubt begin to grow again. Some of them were shaking their heads, others exchanging nervous glances. It wasn't enough. She had hoped that her demonstration would convince them, but instead, it had only deepened their fear. Carla, who had been standing quietly behind Alethar, took a step forward, her voice calm but firm. "You're making a mistake. This is bigger than just one alien, bigger than just one person. Alethar came here because she knows something you don't, something we don't. She's trying to save us." The leader scoffed, not even looking at Carla. "Save us? From what? Another alien invasion?" "No," Alethar interjected, her voice soft but steady. "From something far worse. Something that has already begun. A force that could destroy us all if we do not act quickly." The leader's eyes flashed with anger. "We don't need you here and we don't need your warnings. We've survived without alien help before and we'll do it again. So take your powers, your threats, and leave us in peace." Alethar could feel the anger rising in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. "You are making a grave mistake. You cannot protect this world alone. Neither can I. We need each other." For a moment there was silence again. It was as if the world was holding its breath, waiting to see if the crowd would relent, waiting to see if the leader would finally accept what Alethar was saying. But then, to her horror, the leader raised his hand and gestured to the others. "Enough," he said firmly. "We won't be swayed by this alien. She may have powers but she doesn't belong here. We'll make sure she leaves." At his signal, a few of the more aggressive protesters began to move forward, their faces twisted in rage. Some were shouting, others brandishing makeshift weapons. Nothing that could actually harm Alethar, but it was clear that their intentions were not peaceful. Alethar stepped back instinctively, her mind racing. This wasn't what she had wanted. She had come here in peace, offering them everything she could. And yet, they had chosen fear over understanding, rejection over cooperation. Carla stood by her side, her expression a mixture of concern and frustration. "Alethar, we need to go. This is getting out of hand." Alethar shook her head, her eyes narrowing. "No. I will not run from them. I will not let them push me away just because they fear me." But Carla was already pulling on her arm, urging her to move. "We need to get back inside. They're not listening to reason. You can't change their minds right now." Before Alethar could respond, the crowd surged forward. The leader shouted commands and a few protesters began to push toward them. Alethar could feel the hostility in the air, and though she was more than capable of defending herself, she didn't want to escalate things further. She couldn't. This was not the way forward. "Get inside. Now." Carla shouted, pulling her toward the door. Alethar resisted for just a moment, her gaze sweeping across the crowd. She could feel their hatred, their fear, and yet beneath it, there was a flicker of doubt, of confusion. Was this truly how it would end? Would she be forced to leave Earth in failure, another misunderstood alien? But then the first shout broke through, followed by the swing of a makeshift bat that missed them by mere inches. The protesters were getting closer, and the situation was escalating faster than Alethar had anticipated. "Let's go, Alethar," Carla urged again, her voice strained as she pulled her forward. Reluctantly, Alethar allowed herself to be led back into the building, the door slamming shut behind them just as the crowd began to push against it. The air inside the facility was thick with the stench of fear and anxiety, but Alethar stood still, trying to regain her composure. "What now?" Carla asked, her voice tight with worry. "They're not going to just let this go." Alethar's mind was spinning, but she tried to focus. "I can't believe it. I showed them." "You showed them your power," Carla interjected, "but they saw it as a threat. Fear is the strongest weapon people have when faced with the unknown. And right now you are that unknown." Alethar closed her eyes, exhaling slowly. She had known that her appearance would cause fear, but she hadn't expected the level of hostility and rejection she had just encountered. She had hoped that by proving herself, by showing them that she had no ill intentions, she could earn their trust. But instead, it had only deepened their suspicions. "We can't stay here," Alethar said softly, her voice tinged with the weight of failure. "They won't let us." Carla nodded. "I know. We need to get out of here, but we can't do it alone. We have to find a way to reach the people who will listen." Alethar turned to her, meeting her eyes with a sense of finality. "Then we will find them. We will find those who can see beyond the fear. I will not give up. Not now, not after everything." Carla's gaze softened. "I believe you, Alethar. We just need to be careful. There's more at play here than we can see, and we can't afford to make any more enemies." The two women shared a moment of silent understanding. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with dangers and pitfalls, but Alethar had no choice. She had come here to save Earth and her people, and she wouldn't let a few voices of fear stop her. Not now. Not ever. The silence in the room was oppressive, the tension so thick it felt as if the walls themselves were closing in. Alethar paced restlessly, her 6 arms folded across her chest as she mulled over the events that had unfolded. They had retreated to the building's interior, a temporary shelter of sorts. But it was no longer just a shelter. It felt like a prison, a cage she couldn't escape from. She could still hear the muffled shouts from outside, the pounding fists against the door. The protesters had only grown more enraged after their failed attempt to get her to leave. The hostile voices seemed to echo in her mind, and the words of the leader kept coming back to her. "You're no different. Just another alien." Alethar's chest tightened with frustration. They had rejected her. Her demonstration of power, her words, everything she had done to prove she was on their side, none of it had mattered. All that mattered was that she was different. She was an alien. "Do you think they'll stop?" Carla's voice broke through her thoughts, her tone a mixture of worry and determination. Alethar turned to face her, and for a moment, the familiar warmth of Carla's presence grounded her. Carla, with her quiet resolve and unwavering belief in the mission. Without her, Alethar might have already given up. "I don't know," she replied, her voice soft yet firm. "But they will have to eventually. This is not over." Carla met her gaze, eyes searching. "You can't keep pushing them like this, Alethar. They're scared. I know you're trying to help, but we need to be more strategic. We can't win their trust by forcing it." Alethar clenched her fists, her mind racing. "I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to be the one who has to fight for their trust. They saw me as a weapon, as a threat. And I tried to show them I'm not." Carla's voice softened, her hand gently resting on Alethar's arm. "I know. And you've done everything you could. But we need to reach those who will listen. There are others out there, people who might be more open to what you're saying." Alethar looked at her, the weight of the situation settling upon her. They were running out of time. The prophecy was still looming over them, still an ever-present shadow, and Earth, this planet, her people's last hope, was teetering on the brink. They needed more allies. They needed to find those who would listen, who would believe in her and the message she carried. "If they won't listen to us here," Alethar began, her voice steady but full of uncertainty, "then we must go elsewhere. We must find the ones who can understand." Carla nodded. "I'll help you. We'll find a way." Just as they were beginning to formulate a plan, the sound of pounding fists against the door grew louder, more insistent. A new voice joined the chorus of angry protesters. This one, however, had a note of authority in it. Enough. The voice boomed, cutting through the chaos outside. It wasn't the leader. It was someone else, someone with more command in their tone. For a moment, the door fell silent. Carla and Alethar exchanged a glance, both tense. Who was this new voice? Was it a threat or an ally? Then the voice spoke again. I don't know who you are, alien, or what your intentions are. But you're not the first to come here seeking something. And you won't be the last. Alethar stepped forward, her mind already racing. Not the first to come here seeking something? She didn't recognize the voice, but it sounded like someone who might understand the larger picture. Carla looked at Alethar, hesitant but curious. Who is that? Do you think it's someone we can trust? Alethar didn't answer right away. She was trying to piece it together. She could sense the undercurrent of command in the voice, the authority that accompanied it. Whoever they were, they didn't seem afraid. And that was something Alethar had not seen since arriving on Earth. The pounding resumed. Open the door, the voice demanded, more insistent now. I'm not here to harm you. But I can offer you the only thing that will stop the chaos outside. Alethar looked to Carla, who gave a nod. They had no other options. The crowd outside was growing more violent, and there was no way they could fight them all off, at least not without revealing their full power. They needed to know who was on the other side of that door, and they needed to know quickly. Carla moved to open the door, but Alethar stopped her. Wait, she said quietly. What if this is a trap? What if they want to take us captive? We don't have time to worry about that, Carla replied, her voice steady. They want us to show ourselves. We show them what we're made of. Alethar nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. The moment of truth had arrived. The door creaked open slowly and a figure stepped inside. It was a man, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing dark clothes that marked him as someone with authority, perhaps a leader of some faction, or someone who held sway over the protesters. His face was angular, his eyes sharp and calculating, but his expression was not one of hostility. If anything, there was a certain weariness in his gaze. Who are you? Alethar demanded, her voice cool but demanding. She wasn't about to trust anyone so quickly, especially after everything that had just happened. The man looked at her for a long moment before speaking. My name is Dorian. I'm not one of them, and I'm not here to hurt you. He gestured to the outside, where the sounds of shouting were now muted, as if people were stepping back in anticipation. But I do believe you might have something to offer. I've been watching the situation unfold, and I think I can help you. Alethar's mind raced. She had no idea who this man was, or why he seemed so calm when the entire city was on the brink of chaos. She studied him carefully. Was he truly an ally? Or was this another trick? Why should we trust you? Carla asked, stepping forward, her gaze unwavering. Dorian met her eyes evenly. Because, unlike the others, I don't fear you. I see the potential in what you're trying to do. And right now you're our only hope. Alethar narrowed her eyes. Our only hope? What do you mean? I'll explain, Dorian said, glancing around the room. But we don't have much time. The forces you're trying to stop are already moving, and I know where they're going. If we don't act fast, it'll be too late. Alethar felt a surge of hope, and a wave of doubt. Could this be real? Could he truly help them? Let me help you, Dorian continued. I know where we can go. We have allies, people who are open-minded enough to understand the bigger picture. We don't have much time to waste. Trust me and I'll get you the support you need. Carla looked to Alethar, her face filled with both curiosity and concern. What do you think? Alethar studied Dorian closely. There was something about his calm demeanor that set her at ease, despite the chaotic situation outside. He wasn't afraid and he wasn't trying to manipulate her. Maybe, just maybe, this was the ally they had been searching for. Finally she nodded. All right. We'll trust you. Dorian's expression softened slightly, a glimmer of respect in his eyes. Good. But we need to move quickly. Follow me. As Dorian led them to the back of the building, Alethar felt a renewed sense of purpose. For the first time since arriving on Earth, she felt a flicker of hope. They had allies. There were others who could see the bigger picture, who could help them fight the forces threatening both Earth and her own world. And together they might just have a chance to save everything. The air inside the building grew heavy as Dorian led them down a narrow corridor that Alethar hadn't noticed before. The faint sound of muffled voices and the distant protests outside seemed to fade, replaced by the rapid beat of her heart. Each step felt like a crucial decision. They were moving forward, and yet Alethar couldn't shake the feeling that she was stepping deeper into the unknown. Carla walked beside her, her brow furrowed with worry, but she remained silent, trusting Alethar's judgment. They had no other choice. This was their only shot at survival, at finding the allies they so desperately needed. Dorian stopped at a plain, unmarked door, pausing just long enough to glance back at them. His expression was calm, but there was a noticeable intensity in his eyes, like a man who knew what was at stake. "This way," he said, his voice quiet but urgent. Alethar followed without hesitation, Carla close behind. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit room filled with holographic maps, strange devices and rows of high-tech equipment. It was unlike anything Alethar had seen on Earth, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. This place felt different, secretive even. Inside, a group of people, about a dozen in total, were huddled around a table discussing something in low voices. They looked up as Dorian entered, their faces a mixture of curiosity and surprise. "Dorian, what's going on?" one woman asked, her voice sharp with concern. She was tall, with short-cropped hair and a look of determination in her eyes. "This is Alethar," Dorian said, motioning toward her. "And this is Carla. They're the ones I told you about, the aliens I've been monitoring. They need our help and we need theirs." The woman exchanged a glance with another man who sat beside her. He was older, with graying hair and a heavy coat, but his eyes were sharp, intelligent. His gaze landed on Alethar, and for a moment she thought she saw a flicker of recognition, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared. "Alethar," the man spoke, his voice cautious yet respectful. "I'm Lucian. This is Maya." He gestured toward the woman. "I'm assuming Dorian's not bringing you here just for a chat. What's the situation?" Alethar didn't mince words. "The people outside are only the beginning. There's a force coming to Earth, something far greater and far more dangerous than anyone realizes. I've seen it. My people have seen it. We have to stop it before it's too late." Lucian's eyes hardened and he nodded slowly. "I've heard rumors about an off-world threat. Something big. But I didn't think it was this urgent." "You're saying it's already here?" "Already here," Alethar confirmed. "And it's already too late for most of your military. I came here because Earth's only hope is to unite the people, human and alien, against it. And we need your help to make that happen." Maya leaned forward, clearly intrigued. "How exactly do you expect us to help? We're just a small faction. What can we do against an off-world invasion?" "We've been working for years to prepare for this," Dorian interjected. "But we don't have the manpower or the resources to fight something of this magnitude. Alethar, on the other hand, has powers that could help us level the playing field. She can offer us a weapon that no one else on Earth has." Alethar hesitated. Her powers were vast, but they were unpredictable. She wasn't sure if she could control them, not in the way the humans might expect. She could defend herself, yes. But was that enough to take on the threat looming over them? Could she truly lead them to victory? "What do you mean by powers?" Lucian asked, his gaze narrowing as he studied Alethar. "Alethar is no ordinary alien," Maya explained. "She's a princess from her home planet, and her abilities, well, they go beyond anything Earth has ever seen. But I've also heard rumors. There are others out there, on Earth and beyond, who may want to use her as a weapon." Alethar's mind raced. They were right. There were factions in the universe who would want to exploit her, control her powers, and bend her to their will. But that wasn't the kind of future she was willing to accept. "I don't want to be a weapon," Alethar said, her voice low but resolute. "I want to protect this world. But I can't do it alone." The room fell silent. Maya exchanged a look with Lucian, and Alethar could sense the weight of the decision they were about to make. They had to decide whether to trust her, to take a chance on an alien whose people had been fighting their own battles across the stars for centuries. "We're not in the business of trusting blindly," Lucian said after a long pause. "But you're not asking us to trust you without reason. You've already shown us that you're not a typical alien. And we've seen the evidence. So we'll give you a chance. But know this, if you betray us or if this threat turns out to be as dangerous as you say, we won't hesitate to do whatever is necessary to protect Earth." Alethar nodded. She understood. Trust, once broken, could never be repaired. "I will not betray you," she said firmly. "I will not fail you. But I need you to understand we must act quickly. If we don't unite now, the enemy will strike first." Dorian looked at the others, his face grave. "We need to move fast. Alethar, do you have a plan?" "I do," Alethar said. "But it requires more than just me. We need to gather allies on Earth and beyond. My people, my family, will come, but we need to ensure they're willing to risk everything for this fight." Lucian nodded slowly, his gaze never leaving Alethar's face. "We'll do everything we can to help. But time is not on our side." Just as he finished speaking, A loud alarm blared from the far side of the room. A voice crackled over the intercom. Alert! Alien ships have entered Earth's atmosphere. It's happening? The room erupted into chaos as everyone scrambled to their stations. Alathar's heart raced. The time had come. The enemy was here. And they were no longer hiding in the shadows. Dorian turned to Alathar, his expression hard. Now we see what you're truly made of, princess. Let's end this. Alathar stood tall, feeling the weight of her people's hopes pressing down on her. She wasn't alone anymore. These humans, these fighters, had chosen to stand by her side. And together they would face whatever was coming. With a deep breath, Alathar stepped toward the door. Prepare yourselves, she said, her voice calm but filled with determination. We fight not for ourselves but for the future of both our worlds. As the group moved into action, Alathar's mind flashed back to her home planet, to the prophecy that had guided her here. She was the last hope for both Earth and her people. There was no turning back. And no matter what it took, she would see this through. The end. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more exciting HFY stories. Your support means the world to us. And make sure to tap the bell icon so you never miss an update. Stay tuned for our next adventure, and until then, keep exploring the stars. See you in the next video.